what are some things you would say are red flags when looking for a public relations firm?
I would say with quality of work, I would say the proof's in the pudding of the other roster of their roster of talent that they work with. I would look at their roster, or I would ask them about their roster. Publicity information is readily available online, whether that's spins on radio records or whether that's a magazine feature or whether it's a high profile news feature. So if they've been working that project for a long period of time, you'd hope that there's some solid evidence of that online. That doesn't take too much time to look into. I would look into that.
Hey there. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of When Life Hands You Lemons. I'm your host, Lennon Seahawk. This episode features James Mack, one of the co-founders of Listen Up PR. James co-founded the company in 2011 with his business partner, Luke. Listen Up provides 360-degree promotional services for industry experts and musicians across the film, TV, and music landscape. In this episode, James and I discuss a number of things, including how Listen Up helps their artists become better interviewees. So they learn how to become better speakers on podcasts, on digital print, over email, text, whatever it may be. This is an interesting skill to have, and not a lot of creatives have this type of experience, especially if this is their first campaign. James also goes into detail about the bespoke brand building that it takes for somebody across those industries, especially musicians. And that's kind of the focus of this conversation, is musicians, because I myself am a musician and am in the music industry. One of the other things that we discuss in this episode is the evolution of PR. Since James's company started in 2011, it's been 12 years, and there has been a lot of changes across the music industry since then, specifically regarding technology, NFTs, and Web3. If you're a musician who's just kind of getting started, or even one that's gotten started and is 5-10 years into their career and maybe never had a relationship with a public relations firm, this is a must-listen episode. James gives a lot of really good, helpful tips on working with a public relations firm and what to look for in finding a good one that can really help propel your career. So before I let you go and we dive into all of this amazing content, I want to remind you to sign up to my email list. That is found in the description below. You can easily click and follow there. I'd encourage you to follow me on all of my social media, which is TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and any other social media. And if you're watching and listening on YouTube, be sure to smash that like button, which all the other YouTubers say. Leave a comment down below and hit the subscribe button with the bell notification so you don't miss anything out on the channel. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or any other podcasting platform, if it allows you, leave a 5-star rating and review. That really helps the show get discovered by new listeners and expand the audience. Lastly, if you or somebody you know would be a good guest for this podcast, there is a link down below as well to a form to fill out. I'm always looking for guests across the music industry, specifically attorneys, experts in sync licensing like music supervisors, artists, songwriters, sync agents, music publishers. So without further ado, let's dive into my conversation with James Mack. James, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm excited to chat with you about all things public relations and what you're doing. I've got some questions for you. I'm excited to dig in and hear about your experience in the industry and what it is that you bring to the table. Because the world of Listen Up and public relations is very interesting. So I'm interested to dig into all of that. So before we get started, how's everything going? Where are you based at?
Well, thank you very much for having me, Lennon. So I'm English originally, but I'm based out of Los Angeles.
Tell us a little bit about James and how you got started with Listen Up, and then what Listen Up PR is.
Cool. So how I got started with Listen Up. Prior to Listen Up, I had another PR company, much smaller than this. It was just myself and a press manager. And that specialized in online PR. Then that had been going for about 6 months. And then I was very fortunate to meet my business partner, Luke, and I met him through my wife, Daisy. Listen Up was already in existence then, albeit for a short period of time. But Listen Up at that point was just a radio plugging company, and it's based in the UK. So essentially, people would employ the business to get records played on radio, whether that's national radio across UK or specialist dance music radio. As we started off as a specialist in the dance music community. So Luke and I met through my wife. We hit it off from the get go. I'd always wanted to expand my business into more radio and club promotions, and I know that Luke very much wanted to expand Listen Up into the press world and landscape. So we talked, we got on well, we decided to join forces, and I merged my prior company to become part of Listen Up, and that's how we got things started. So the business, so that was coming up to 12 years ago now. The business first started off with just Luke and one of our now directors, James Jackson, on the radio plug-in side of the business and the club promotions, DJ service and promo side of the business, and then myself and my press manager, who I brought over from my prior business, on the press side of things. So there was 4 of us in total at the start, and now we've been very fortunate to grow the business to a full-time team of 30 across both our Los Angeles and our London offices. We have a full-time team of 6 based out of LA, and then we have 24 based out of London. So it's been a really nice journey today.
Yeah, that's amazing. Congrats. So going from 2 to 30 is pretty impressive. So congrats on that. What over the last 12 years since you've been in PR, what has changed, or how has it changed?
I would say, well, when I first started my PR journey, coming up to 17 years ago now, when I first started in the business, in my side of public relations, I've always been involved in the press side of things. So the more traditional forms of press, which is print press, and then more recently moving in more into the TV landscape, and obviously online, and now obviously social is so key and important too. So when I first started off, I mean, I had a list of 600 mailing addresses that I would fold one. We called them one sheets. We would print off the one sheets. We'd stuff them in the promo CDs, and then we'd post them out. And then that was kind of how you got the word out in terms of promoting music to journalists, well, globally, across the globe. So we don't do that any more of that now, quite thankfully. But yeah, that was a very significant change. And when I first got into the business, online press wasn't even really kind of a form or a real medium. I got into it just because I kind of came up through like the hype machine and era and the blogosphere, if you will, and I noticed that very early on in my career that blogs were obviously very much on the rise in terms of not just being tastemakers, but also in terms of their readership and followership and the amount of hits that they were getting on a daily basis. So I kind of built my own database from there, built my own relationships from there, and kind of became a specialist in online PR, if you will. So I think the leap from print being a key medium, which it still is, of course, it's so important to an artist or a records career. Having a multi-page feature in a magazine or a newspaper, it can really jump your career from kind of here to here, and or greatly assist in an instant. But yeah, that was a very exciting shift for me to see, and me kind of be part of and be on the front line. So, and then obviously more recently, you have a big shift in social and trends in terms of social media takeovers, and those IG accounts or those Twitter accounts or a TikTok account for a specific platform being maybe even more important than or a podcast even then, and being even more important than a newspaper or a cultural outlet or a specialist music based title. So I think the diversifying of that in terms of forms of mediums in which to gain exposure through, or for an artist to have their voice heard from, that's been a very exciting change and shift over the last few years.
Okay. So how does I would assume I've had publicists on on the podcast before, quite a few of them. But so I'm not. We won't go into the conversation of what is PR. I think at this point, there's plenty of episodes out there on what public relations is. So I want to kind of jump in. Like the next step is, does an artist need PR, or when is a good time to get PR? What is the budgeting for PR? Those types of questions, because I know it varies, but it's always interesting to hear because every public relations company may or may not function differently or similarly. So kind of going back, how has the pitch to digital versus um, like actual physical, like a print, differ, or are they the same?
I would say a few years ago you would have uh, as a business
Hmm.
you would be charging separate fees to a client, one for online press and one for print press
Mm.
specifically. Uh, but with the form of print coming down in terms of
Hmm.
circulation numbers,
Hmm.
and the kind of the need more from an artist to have strong a strong presence online and socially as well too. Those those kind of two business points very obviously merged, if you
Hmm.
will. So I would say on a business point they were separate. Now they're one and the same.
Okay. And the pitch is very similar. Like you wouldn't change or alter a pitch of an artist's story, um, or whatever you're pitching, to print than you would digital. It's all kind of very similar.
I would say everything is bespoke to the artist.
Okay.
I would say that every pitch to every single journalist or freelancer has to be unique in a way,
Mm.
and that has to be unique in a way uh, to that medium that you're pitching to,
Mhm.
the individual that you're speaking to as well
Mm.
too. Some people enjoy reams of information and various listen links and imagery. Uh, some of your close contacts that you're speaking to prefer things pretty simple and pretty straightforward, and then they can make their own mind and their own judgments from there. So, uh,
Okay.
but I think but I think being able to show an artist's long term vision in that condensed pitch, it's a real key to being a publicist. And
Mhm.
it's great saying that you have a new single coming or you have a new tour coming. But it's what's next and what's next. And if
Mhm.
you're able as an artist or a music festival to be able to kind of give a snapshot into your project's long term journey, then I feel that you want to work with these publications as an artist for a very long period of time. Uh,
Mhm.
Quick buck kind of coverage. I mean, I would say that that's not beneficial to an artist's long term career in a
Mhm.
sense. So the more that you can, the more, you can, the more that you can tie into your pitch with regard to the long term plan of the artist, then you can go on a journey with that publication as well too. You can start with
Yeah.
your one page feature and then you hopefully build that to a cover, and then if they have an award ceremony or then hopefully you can chart high and be visible in that poll, whether that's an end of year poll, whether that's something that they do annually. Uh, Billboard, DJ Mag for more specialist electronic music
Yeah.
artists. So
Okay.
yeah,
Are you primarily working with artists these days? Are you working with festivals? Who's kind of your primary client?
it's artists, I would say,
Artists.
direct as a business
Okay.
that listen up. We did have we as a business we did have a large and healthy festival and events department in our UK office. Unfortunately, due to COVID, as you would expect, that took a hit. Uh,
Yeah.
but with regards to the artist department, I think even though obviously global pandemic, it hit everyone extremely hard with regards to touring. I think that if you stayed relevant and current during that period of time, and you was able to make and produce music and release music, then I would say that those artists that did that and have come out of that pandemic, and the artists that we work with, are in an extremely stronger place than
Mm.
anyone that kind of put the brakes on things for a period
Mhm.
of time.
So when an artist comes to you looking for PR, what is kind of what they're looking for? Are they wanting, is there a specific thing they're looking for? Obviously, to get the word out about whatever it is, but is there anything else that they're like, hey, I want to try this idea, or I'm trying to connect with these people or get into this industry. Can you help me with my messaging to do that? Is there anything like that that artists are kind of gravitating towards these days?
Very much so. I think that with any artist that you work with, the role of a publicist is completely bespoke to their
Yep.
wants and needs are, and also what they're comfortable with. If you're
Mhm.
working with an artist for the first time, I mean, the strong chances are that they've never worked with a PR company or a publicist before, uh, and they're pretty green when it comes to interviews and speaking to journalists. So I think
Mm.
the first thing is making them feel comfortable with
Mm.
with talking to press, being comfortable with journalists, and getting their messaging across and telling their story in a way that's unique and true to them. Uh,
How do you
so
make them feel comfortable? What are some things you do to help them feel comfortable?
I think you've just got to be honest in terms of if you're trying to be fake as an artist, or you're trying to paint a story around you, then it's just there's always going to be cracks, isn't
Yeah.
there, essentially? So I
Yeah.
think just trying to make the artist feel as comfortable as they can in terms of telling their unique journey uh, to a journalist or a freelancer, it's key. And I think that's how strong relationships are built
Mhm.
with that artist and that journalist for the long term. And hopefully, from them working together, they can also become uh, as well as being peers in the music industry, they can also become good friends as well too, and have that
Mm.
honest connection. And I think
Mhm.
that shows through very very clearly when in any kind of piece with an
Mhm.
artist, that honesty. Yeah, it makes a, it makes an okay piece into an exceptional piece, and one
Yeah,
that people will talk about for a long
absolutely.
period of time. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when should an artist kind of seek out public relations, or when is it the right time for an artist to seek out a PR firm or start doing PR themselves?
essentially, when they want to amp things in their career, it could be an artist that is very typically, traditionally, they're started out in their career.
Mm.
Uh, they want to get the word out. They have content to work with, and whether that's music, a body of work, or whether that's one particular track, or whether that's an EP, and then that naturally rolls into tour dates as well too.
Mm.
But it's again, it's very bespoke to the artist. I have artists that have come that are coming that we're having discussions about their 2023 PR rollout, and they're extremely successful at the top of their game. Uh, but they've never ever really invested or felt the need that they've needed to have a publicist backing them in their career. And I think that they're at a very important part of their career whereby there's a moment where they could really take things to the next level. And I think it's all well and good kind of being hot, but my opinion is if you can throw a load of lighter fluid on it and blow it up even more, uh, and that hopefully is us as a publicity company, then we're going to give that talent the ammunition that they need to then
Mhm.
further their careers, whether that's through better bookings or better billing, or obviously the financial side of things when it comes to touring as well too. Being able to sell out shows, sell out gigs,
Mm.
stream more records, get a better record deal, get a new record deal, get a better publishing deal. Uh,
Hmm.
we're we're here to give them the tools that they need to show that there's hype and
Yeah.
attention on a
Mm.
project. That's our main role.
Okay. And do you recommend artists hire a publicist, or do you recommend they do it themselves? And why or why not?
You can do it yourself. It's extremely time consuming,
Yeah.
but obviously when you're an artist just starting out and the budgets aren't there for whatever reason, you might be unsigned or you you just don't have that investment there. As
Mm,
an artist, you should be concentrating on creating music and performing that music. And then if you can build yourself a strong team around you that's sharing your vision, uh, then amazing. But if you're an artist and you're first starting off, then then look, contacts with journalists are readily available online. It's if you want to find someone's details, you can seek them out, and
mhm,
and I think just putting in the research. Just if there's a particular editorial platform that you really like, and there's an artist that you feel is very similar to you, and you feel that you can put together a very quick, concise pitch that's to the point to that specific journalist or that specific freelancer, then I mean, go hit them up. Journalists loves hearing from artists direct. Of
mhm,
course they do. So they want to have that direct connection there.
absolutely.
So if you're an artist, I know it kind of it does me out of some business potentially, but as an artist, you might not have those budgets instantly. So and then build some hype yourself, and then come and see me and my company afterwards, and then we'll blow it up for you even further
Yeah.
after that. So, but don't be afraid if you're an artist just starting out to seek out those key tastemakers that you feel would be into your music. Like, go ahead, do it.
Yeah. I appreciate that because like you said earlier in the episode, you were talking about honesty and, it doesn't make sense for a public like your firm to take on an artist that just doesn't have the goods to push yet. Like maybe they're still working on their story, maybe they still need to hone in on their sound and their craft and their kind of messaging and everything is still kind of all over the place and they're still trying to figure everything out. It wouldn't be best to just take their money and pitch them and not see any results. That wouldn't look good on you and it wouldn't look good on the artist. Artists are struggling and financially, like COVID and the pandemic really hit them. And some artists just don't have a lot of the budget that these bigger signed artists have. So being honest with them and saying, look, if we can get your career, but it's going to cost you X amount of dollars, and it wouldn't make sense for us to take that because you just don't have the story or the content for us to push just yet. So come back to us in a year or 2 years, and we'll be more than happy to help you out.
Oh, exactly. Look, I listen, and everything that comes into my inbox, whether it's a promo, I listen to it, or it's someone reaching out for me for the first time, and
Mm,
I think as an emerging artist, have having someone come back to your email or acknowledge that you sent something to someone because you've probably sent that email to hundreds of people, and and just being heard and getting a reply from someone gives you validation that you are doing something right. And it might
yeah.
not be the right time to work with someone, but in a year's time it will. And I've had that with so many artists that we've
Mm,
worked with over the years. And I think the most funnest thing for me is working from an artist from the ground up, having
mm,
having that personal satisfaction, and my staff having that satisfaction that they can take a project from a very early stage where we're not really charging them that much money. I'm kind of just really kind of covering my costs as a business, but we're all very passionate about it, and that we know as the artist's career builds and grows, our relationship does. That will on the business side of things for us as well. So we're financially reciprocated for the efforts that we're putting in, and then hopefully you go on this wonderful journey together where you're selling out shows and having hit records and winning awards. As a business, we had a wonderful case in point with that with an artist that we've worked since the beginning, Black Coffee. This year, we worked.
yes.
Yeah, he was Natty Coffee. He kind of blew up. Wasn't a kid when he blew up. Put in years and years and hours and road warring and touring. And then he was able to have a spark and a break, and records started to connect. And we came on board very early in the project, about 7.5 years ago. And we've grown and we've been on that journey. And then we was able to win Best Dance Electronic Album at this year's Grammy. And with a very small team as well too, I think. So thank you, Len. So there was 7 of us in total at the Grammy ceremony, and you're looking at other rows, and you've got teams of 50 people and record label execs, and of course everyone should be there because they've all put a lot of time and energy and effort. But it was on an independent record label as well too. It was
even better.
His long-standing manager. His son was with him.
Oh wow!
His agent, his long-standing agent, and myself and Charlotte, who's the director of our North American office, and then and that was it. That was the game. And we all went and celebrated at Shake Shack afterwards.
Obviously, where else would you go other than Shake Shack after a Grammy win?
Yeah, so I mean, it was in Las Vegas as well too, which I don't know if that will ever happen again or anytime soon. So
amazing.
Yeah, you're standing in the casino and like, where do you want to go? All these wonderful places, and it's like, I want to go Shake Shack. So,
yeah, some really high end, really nice restaurants, and you go to Shake Shack in Vegas. I love it. Yeah, that's right. The Grammys were held in Vegas this year. So I'm a journalist at EDM.com, and I get a lot of your guys' pitches quite a bit, and a lot of our team does as well, and we've been very staunch supporters of Black Coffee. I see a lot of his stuff come through, and we publish a lot, and we're very big supporters of Black Coffee. So it's really kind of, we're all kind of celebrating this success. I remember when we all are cheering on Black Coffee. He's just an amazing, incredibly talented artist with an amazing message and stuff. So we're always very happy to support, and I love supporting artists like that as well. Just personally, anything that I can do to help and support those types of artists is amazing. So congrats on all of that. That's so amazing.
Thank you very much.
To grow an artist. So what was it kind of like in that moment where you're sitting there? You took this artist 7.5 years ago, all the way up to winning a Grammy on an independent, like just unheard of, almost Chance the Rapper type stuff. What does that feel? What were you kind of feeling in those moments? I could see you kind of smiling and just lighting up talking about it. So what was that like?
Cheshire Cat. So it's hard to put into words. So it was definitely a career highlight of mine and my businesses. And Charlotte, my long-standing director of my North American business, it was, words can't describe the feeling that we had. To win in that moment with that team and in that very unique location as well too.
Yeah, absolutely. And then of course celebrating with Shake Shack. It's the tie-in is my favorite part. I love that.
Yeah, that's it. A couple of jugs of beer and some Shack burgers all around, and good to go. So,
absolutely.
Suited and booted. So
absolutely. That's amazing. So how are you measuring success for these artists? Is it based on social strategy? Is it based on streaming numbers? And I would assume it's very different for every artist, but how are you measuring the success of the artists that you're working with?
Again, the success is it's bespoke and it's measurable to what their aims and achievements are. With our pop roster, of course, and our pop dance roster, we of course want hit records, and we would love for those records to be as popular as they can be, and obviously, the measurability of that is how high you chart and how many streams you have and how many records you sell per se. So, but then we have artists that are with specific to electronic music that their measure of success isn't that. Their measure of success is how many tickets they sell and how popular that they can become and be as a hard ticket selling act, but also not just in one territory, but if they can achieve that success globally in multi territories. And if they can if they can break out of their genre and become a very successful act that's seen as an act in the whole of multi-genre across all forms of music, and they can break out to those stages that not too many of their peers get those opportunities to play. So
Mhm.
if you're specific to North America, if you're a dance music act and you look at Coachella as a festival, and you start out in the Yuma, or you start out in the Sahara tent, but then you can maybe break out to those live stages, the Gobi, or you can get to the second stage, or you can get a main stage performance. Uh, for those specific artists, they might not be having Billboard charting records, but
Sure.
they're definitely having a massive amount of success, and they have a
Mhm.
massive fan base as well too. So
Mhm.
uh, yeah, I would say that they're kind of the key measures, if you will, and then it goes through the whole chain as well too. So
Sure.
and run through the ladder.
Sure.
But yeah,
Sure.
those are, I would say, the key measures of success.
Okay. Going back just a little bit, do you find that is it better to have a public relations company like Listen Up versus doing it independently? Because you obviously have way more connections than I do across different media outlets, across different companies, across different whatever. So, do you find that artists investing in public relations with a company like Listen Up see more success than they would have reaching out independently to various journalists, podcast hosts, et cetera, et cetera?
I would say that there's two answers to that question.
Okay.
I would say yes, in terms of that success, we're having those discussions on a daily basis. I'm very fortunate that the business has built its reputation to a level where journalists, they will open our email over someone else's. They will pick
Mhm.
up a phone call over someone else's, and they trust that the projects that we're bringing to them are of a real quality, whether it's an established act coming with their third or fourth album, or whether it's a brand new act that's breaking. So I feel that uh, us being in the mix, in the center of that spider's web, it gets us heard. It gets us heard quicker,
Mm,
uh, and not just quicker. It gets you heard by the right people. Uh,
mm,
but I would also go on to a second prong whereby uh, we have a lot of acts that we've worked and we've gone on journeys with them and we've started working with them direct, whether that's through a management company or whether that's through them themselves. They've gone on to get signed. That
mm,
major record label or that independent record label has an in-house team. That in-house team would probably like to work on that project, that in-house publicity team. But I'm very fortunate that the relationships that we've forged over the years, our clients are very loyal to us,
mm,
and I feel that they see the benefit of working with a company like mine because we're working for the talent, we're working for the act. You might be getting paid by a record label, but at the end of the day, if the artist or the management company isn't happy with your work, they'll use someone else or they'll use the in-house team.
mhm,
So I'm very fortunate with those relationships that we've forged over the years. They will always look to have our backs and have us work for them because they know that we're always going to be number one for them. So
mm,
unfortunately, with record labels, there's priorities change, uh, especially in the dance music sphere. You could have a pop act come along and in a week's notice have a record come through, and it requires the full effort and the full team of that specific label. But I think there's massive value in independent agencies, not just PR companies, whether that's independent agencies in the marketing sphere or the social strategy sphere.
mhm,
Uh, we're always going to be number one for the
mm.
artists, and they know that, and they have that trust and that reassurance in that. So
That's really
cool.
helpful for an artist, as well to know that, you guys are up to bat for them and helping their career, and even though the label or whoever is paying you, you're always on the support of the artist, because at the end of the day, it's their career. They're the one who are going to have to do the interviews that you guys secure for them. They're the ones who are going to have to tell their story for these publications. These are the ones who are going to have to okay the brand deals that you guys are bringing them, if they are looking to work on those types of things. So it's really, really nice to hear that you guys, even though um, somebody else may be paying their bill, that you guys are always on the support on the side of the artist. That's amazing.
Yeah, I think it's key.
I think it is too. So for artists who are kind of at that level of their career, they feel like they have a story, they've got enough content, they maybe have 2 or 3 albums worth of music ready to go, and they're looking to get the word out, but they just don't know how to get their story put together. What are some things as they're looking for a public relations firm? What are a couple of the things, like what are some red flags in a public relations firm? And I know we kind of touched on one earlier is, the honesty. Yeah, that's a good one. But what are some other things that an artist should look for, or a manager, whoever's looking for publicity? What what are some things you would say are red flags when looking for a public relations firm?
Red flags from the publicity company specifically, bad
Yeah.
things that they're doing,
Yeah.
or bad things on this. The bad things that the publicity company might be doing. I would say with quality of work. I would say the proof's in the pudding of the other roster of their roster of talent that they work with. I would look at their roster, or I would ask them about their roster, and I would again publicity information is readily available online, whether that's spins on radio records, or whether that's a magazine feature, or whether as a high profile news feature. So have a quick search if they've been working that project for a long period of time. You'd hope that there's some solid evidence of that online. So
Sure.
it that doesn't take too much time to look into. I would look into that. I would ask them as well too some key goals that you've achieved for your kind of your peers or your contemporaries over there. Again, that information should be it's not a secret, if you will. So I think getting that direct information it's key. I would look at the volume of work that they take on as well too. I think that a firm that's always overworked, it's they are not potentially going to have the time and attention that you may need. So, and again, what's the worst that these companies can say no at the end of the day? I'm not going to give you that information, but that's going to pull a red flag straight away. So,
True.
yeah, again, it's the open honesty thing, isn't it? So it's like,
Yeah.
you're going to put me with this specific press manager or director or head of press as my main point contact. What are they working on at the moment? Who are they working on at the moment? What's the volume and capacity that they're working with?
Mhm.
And if that firm wants to work with you, they should tell you. So, and if you're not getting the information that you need from that, then yeah, you might want to see what other options are available to you.
Cool. That's good information. So now transitioning a little bit, let's say an artist who's just starting out, let's say they've decided they don't have the budget for that and they're just going to take on some public relations themselves and they want to get some press and do kind of the basic 101 type stuff. What are some of your like top 3 tips that you would give to an artist or a manager who's going to take on public relations themselves? What would you say in order to maximize the success of their pitch or whatever they're trying to achieve?
I would say keeping it short and concise. It's
Okay.
key.
Okay.
Hyperlinks, decks, imagery, very important. If you get your brand looking right or near to where you want it to be, obviously budgets constraints there. That's key. So at the end of the day, so if someone's opening up your email, they have a few quick seconds to look at that and assess if this is something that they want to get into. The music is first and foremost the most important thing at the end of the day. If you don't like what you're hearing, then you're not going to become a fan of it, and you're not going to potentially want to write about it. So just a quick private link to some music there, or the music has to, I wouldn't go sending out demos. The music's got to be it's got to be finished, if you will, and a product that you're happy with, and also something that you are definitely releasing as well.
Mhm.
I think if you're just sending music to a specific journalist and you have no idea of when it's coming out, or that, you're not showcasing a plan, then are you? So that factual information's got to be key when you're dropping that music. Here's a private link to it before it's being dropped, so you have an exclusive cop and you can listen to that. And then if you can have some strong imagery on yourself to support that, whether that's a press shot or whether even that's a favour that you can pull, or even that's if, I mean, look, these cameras are the best things out there, aren't they? At the end of
Yeah.
the day, so yeah. Or even if it's that's you performing that record live, whether you're a band or whether you're a DJ or whatever, and you have a friend, or you yourself can record yourself performing that record in some cool way. I think that shows that showcases your talent as well too, and having that hyperlinked in there, definitely it's a way to go with that. And if you have the time as well too, and if you have the skill set, a little deck on yourself as well that you can attach to that. So
Mm.
has links to your social accounts as well too. Any key stats around you, or any of that messaging that you want to that longer messaging that you want to convey. Have that in there as well too. Those decks are really really helpful as well.
Mm.
But yeah, I would that would be my key tips and pointers for an artist
Okay.
just starting out wanting to go direct.
Are these decks, are they like one sheets, or is that different than a one sheet, or is it kind of like an EPK?
Sure. The same. So I wouldn't say going as far as an EPK, but a one
Okay.
sheet, one
Oh,
sheet deck, yeah.
okay. Cool. Yeah, and for those who don't know, like a one sheet, just like James was saying, everything on one sheet. You know, you got your social stats, you've got a little bio on you, got maybe a press image. Make sure it's branding. The fonts and styling are kind of similar and match your branding and style. And then if you won a Grammy like Black Coffee, that's definitely something you would want to throw on there, and maybe even some coverage from previous publications as well. Like if you had a feature in Billboard or Rolling Stone or anything, that's also helpful to say like, oh, they're paying attention. That means this journalist should as well. I've personally, as a journalist, those are the types of things that I like to receive as well. Seeing like, oh, and reading more about their story on Rolling Stone or wherever they've been covered at is helpful to help kind of pull the full picture in, so I can get a bigger picture of who you are as an artist. So that's good information.
You
Um,
got it on lock, Lennon. There you
I
go.
know, I know. I've got it on lock. I'm coming over. I'm going to help run the PR over there.
Man, please do.
Cool. So that's kind of all the questions that I've got for you. I want to keep things short, and I'm sure you're a busy guy. You've got lots of campaigns to work on. So I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me and offer some really, really good advice, and humble advice. I know there's a lot of really kind of sketchy PR out there. I've ran into them. I've been pitched by them, and you've been very humble and honest with all of your information. So I appreciate that.
No worries at all. Pleasure.
Of course, of course. So if anybody has any questions for you, anything you had maybe said, or maybe they want to chat with you about, running a campaign for them, how can they reach out and contact you or somebody from your team?
They can reach out to me on my email address. That's james.mack, M-A-C-K, at listen-up.biz. We also have a new music email as well too, which is just newmusic at listen-up.biz. That goes around to a select group of the senior team at Listen Up, whether that's across the radio department, the club promotions, DJ servicing team, and the press department at both sides of the pond in our LA and our London offices. And as a collective, that gets to all the key people that you want to get it to at the company, and we'll all listen to that, and we'll all bounce around our thoughts on that. And if it's and regardless if it's something that we're into or if we're not, we'll always get back to those emails with if it's a project for us or if it's not, or if someone wants to ask us some advice when can I keep sending you music? Of course, keep it coming through. So we're always happy to listen.
Of course, of course. Well, thank you so much, James. I appreciate your time and your insight on everything music PR. I hope this conversation has been helpful for those listening. And if you have any questions, all of James' info will be in the show notes below. Link to his website, his email, all that stuff. So, thank you again, James, for your time, and hope you have a happy holidays. I guess now that this episode will be coming out in like February or March, but at the time of recording, it's December 8th. So I hope you have a happy holidays.
You too, then. Thank you for your time.